so many people are afraid to cry and afraid to feel when that's the first step of coming out the other side. Sometimes the hardest, shittiest, most traumatic experiences are literally what make your life. A blessing has come from it.
It wouldn't have, our life wouldn't be what it is unless that happened. So when our kids were first born, I mean, tiny, we already had friends who homeschooled, and it was always part of my thought, oh gosh, I'd love to. But I was just totally scared. And I thought, I can't do it. I'm too highly strung, I'm too fiery, there is no way I'm going to destroy them if I homeschool them, so no, I won't. So then kind of shelved it. And he broke down in a fetal position in the corner of the room, and he was like, I don't want to be alive anymore.
Hello everyone, welcome to my podcast. This is Real Talk with Nat. I am your podcast host, Natalie Naman. We are here today on episode 8 and we have our fabulous guest, Mickey. Hi there. Gorgeous Mickey in green.
Hello.
She's very in theme with our sofa today.
Planned it.
I love it. Let's get straight into your introduction. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself. Viewers, listeners, wherever you're listening to.
Okay, so, gosh, I was born in South Africa.
Yeah.
On the other side of the world, and grew up in a Afrikaans speaking family until the age of 6 when my parents decided that they wanted to move to Australia, well, to Tasmania, which is that little island just underneath Australia, to go to a Bible college, to train, to become missionaries. And so life changed dramatically at that point. So lived in Australia for 3.5 years. My dad got very ill. I'll do a whistle stop, then you can ask me about anything afterwards. And then he, got very, very ill, got something called ulcerative colitis, which meant that he essentially had to have his whole large intestine removed.
Wow.
Nearly died. I mean, it was, pretty intense time.
How old were you when that was happening?
I think I would have been 7 or 8.
Oh, young.
At the time, and then I think plans from there was that my parents were planning on moving to Mongolia.
For any particular reason?
To like do church planting, to be missionaries over there.
Okay.
And then my sister and I would have actually ended up going to school in China. We would have gone to like an international school, to boarding school in China.
Wow.
But then because my dad got ill, there just wouldn't have been the provision for him that he would have needed. And to be honest, my mum wasn't super keen on the idea of having her girls. So I've got a sister who's 4 years older than me and wasn't keen on sending us to boarding school. Praise the Lord. I was very grateful. I was very, very grateful.
Yeah.
And so then things changed, and then they decided to move here to the UK. So I moved to the UK when I was 9, lived up in the north in Leeds for all of my schooling and college, and then moved around after that. So that's kind of brief introduction to me. Who am I now? I'm married. I am married to a man called Matt, and we've been together for 20 years, been married for 16. We have 3 beautiful children, Malachi, who's 14, Hero, who's 13, and Huckleberry, who's 9.
I love the names, by the way.
Thank you.
Whenever you talk about your kids, whenever I see you, I'm like, oh, I just love those names. Aren't they so brilliant?
They are good names.
Yeah.
They're good names. They're good kids. And so we homeschool the kids as well. I was homeschooling all of them up until last year, and then we decided to put Huck in school. He's dyslexic, and so he just needed that extra help. He's a feisty kid as well, and didn't want mummy to teach him. So I said, mate, it's either mummy teaching you or you go to school. So he was like, fine, I'll go to school. I won't tantrum. I'll just suck it up. I was like, awesome.
Yeah.
So he's at school currently, but will probably come out at the end of year 6.
Okay.
So that's currently, and I'm a part-time barber. I've just qualified, so I've been doing 2 days a week since June. So that's been a real learning curve for me and a real kind of growth, and really vulnerable. I'm almost 41. Next week I'll be 41, and learning such a new skill and learning a new, kind of going into a new career and things like that has been really challenging, but it's been amazing.
Yeah, well, you're never too old to start anything.
No.
whatever age you are, firstly, 40 is still young. Extremely young.
Yeah,
it is, though, isn't it?
Of course.
It is. But, whether you're 41, 51, 61, or 71, or 81, whatever you want to start.
And I actually think it has helped, being this age has meant that I think I'm more robust than what I would have been 20 years ago.
Yeah.
There were times where I was like, I really wish I'd started this when I was 20, but actually I wasn't who I am today. And so would I have been as robust? No.
Yeah.
Would I have been as secure in myself, been able to push through? No. Would I have been as confident in who I am and in what I want to do and confident with people? No. So,
everything happens exactly as it's supposed to, when it's supposed to.
I think so.
And I think often when we go through life, during the times, when we go through our ups and downs, you think, oh, why is this happening? But when you look back, everything always makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And you grow from it and you learn from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, right, let's go back to your childhood.
Okay.
So you moved to Australia when you were 6, did you say? So what did life look like, other than your dad getting ill?
Yeah.
And the stuff that came with that?
Yeah.
Talk about the stuff that came with that, actually. Do you remember much around that time?
Oh, gosh, it was really vivid, actually. There are points of it that are very vivid for me. Leaving South Africa, I think at the time it didn't feel traumatic. But then once I was a bit older, I realised that I had trauma around it. But at the time, it was an adventure, first time on an aeroplane. We basically sold everything, sold the house, sold the car, sold the boat, sold the caravan, sold timeshares. Everything was gone, and we had our bags and we had our suitcases, and that is it.
Yeah.
And we moved. And I think our family really found that super hard. I wasn't really aware of that. I've only learned about that later on. But then moving to Australia was really fun. We learnt to speak English, which is actually really only a very small part of my memory. I think I was always bilingual in terms of being able to understand. So I have English-speaking cousins who didn't speak Afrikaans but understood Afrikaans. I spoke Afrikaans but understood English. And I think we would just speak like that. So I would talk to them in Afrikaans. They would speak to me back in English. And we were like, whatever, it's normal.
Helped each other,
it's totally normal.
Yeah.
And then... So started school. I remember teachers being like, oh, is that how you write that?
Yeah.
And only looking back going, oh, it's because I was writing it in Afrikaans.
Yeah, in your own way.
Yeah. So learned to speak English and learned to write English and went through school. And it was really fun. We lived on a campus, on a college campus, in a apartment with about 400 other... So we didn't live with 400 other students and other families, but they're on the campus, which is a huge farm.
Oh, lovely.
We lived in a flat, self-contained flat on that property.
Okay.
And so there were loads of kids. You can imagine, so many young families, so many people, so many students. And we had the run of the farm. So it was incredible. There were orchards and there were animals. So the students who were at the college they would also have to do their duties and sort of look after the animals. They would be milking the cows, mucking out the pigs, growing the food. It was incredible, really.
Yeah.
And us kids were just able to kind of play and ride our bikes and
That's
go down to the river. And we'd have to say to the farmer, hey, we're going down to the river. Can you turn the electric fences off? Because we're going down.
Oh, my God.
And I remember getting absolutely knocked onto my arse because I ran down there too quickly and tried to jump the fence when the electric wire was still on.
Oh, my God.
Do you know what I mean? So those kinds of memories, and we'd all meet up at the gate before we went to school because there'd be one adult who was on duty to walk the kids up to the local school.
Yeah.
And so we just went to school, and it was amazing, really, because thinking back, I was like, gosh, there were Indigenous children who also went to the school, Aboriginal children who went to the school. And it was just a really different environment to what I'd grown up in. And then you go back and then you live in this environment that there's so many people and you have your own self-contained flat, but for dinner time you all eat in a dining hall with like 400 other people.
Wow, that's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
But like we'll talk about your life now later, but when I know about your life now and what that looks like, hearing that makes it, a lot of it makes sense.
Okay.
I'm like, okay,
in what way?
Because with all the stuff that you do now with your allotment and stuff, which we'll talk about, when you were younger, you must have probably subconsciously been looking at all this stuff and just being, firstly, it was the norm, very natural, and what a great way of living.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've probably taken that throughout your whole life.
And I'd never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
But there's no kind of boundary of how you can live your life.
No, of
or
course.
what's okay or what isn't okay.
Yeah.
Never been bothered about what people think.
No, yeah.
In terms of the way that we raise our children, the way that we do things. Because I'm like, well, if it's fun, do it.
100%.
Right? Yeah.
I could not agree more. Amazing. So, okay, so life as a child was adventurous.
Yeah. Super adventurous.
Amazing.
Moving country twice by the time I was 9.
Yeah. So 9 you came to the UK and you lived in Leeds, you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a whole nother...
So tell me about that. What did that look like?
So my parents had joined a missionary organisation and we had then been moved... Well, we arrived here, just again with our bags. And, I mean, it sounds so weird, but it wasn't a commune, but it was a community.
Okay.
I'm gonna say, I've already said the word, so it's out there. But essentially, it was a community. All the offices. So basically, what my parents did were they wrote radio programs, Christian radio programs for countries.
Okay.
That at the time didn't allow Christianity.
Okay.
So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so upstairs were all the flats, and downstairs were all the offices and the recording studios.
Okay.
And the classrooms and things like that. And so again, we found ourselves living in much smaller this time, but there were 6 families who lived on the property. We had about 4 acres of land. And it was this huge old Barnardo's school.
Okay.
It used to be a children's home.
Yeah.
That had then been bought out by the mission organisation. And so we lived upstairs in one of the flats there. And had the wildest, most fun, because there were other families who lived there. There were about 15, 20 other kids. We would have football clubs. We'd play, we'd dig bunkers under the tennis lawn,
Yeah.
We'd play street hockey. Our dads would set up floodlights outside.
Yeah.
We just had the best time.
Yeah. And compared to childhood for a lot of people now, I mean, that sounds incredible.
Yeah.
And when I look back at my childhood, outdoors was such a big thing.
Yeah.
And when you look at what life is like now for so many children,
they don't
and they don't
experience
have any of that.
Yeah, some kids have never swam in the river or swam in the sea, and my kids spend all summer in the river on the kayaks, doing paddle boarding, jumping off trees and logs into the river. It's just part of
life. Yeah, it's like a second nature.
Yeah.
How amazing. And I think how whatever your childhood looks like, you just do your best, don't you, to either match it if it was good or do the opposite.
You definitely want to avoid the things that weren't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so childhood was good fun. You had a lot going on, outdoorsy.
Yeah.
And then you went to college. I'm fast forwarding.
Yeah, fast forward.
Went to college, and what did you do at college?
I studied performing arts.
Okay.
Yeah, I did a BTEC National in Performing Arts.
And you're a singer?
So I sing.
Yeah.
And used to play the guitar, but not so much.
Yeah.
So I'm part of a gospel choir. Have done. So Matt and I were very much involved with church for a very long time. So we grew up in church.
Okay.
Matt has 2 grandfathers who were vicars.
Okay.
For me, my parents were obviously missionaries, but they were the first people in their families to be Christian. So it was a very different type of family dynamics that we came from. But both of us very involved with church, very much involved in the music. So I've worship led and done lots of things to do with music for a very, very long time.
Yeah. Amazing. So you're a big part of the church.
Yeah.
One of the things that we spoke about before we came on the podcast was all your different kind of things that you've been through in your life, where you feel like you've had big transformations. Obviously, the podcast is all about transformation.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to talk a little bit about those different things.
Okay.
So just on that, maybe we'll start there with the whole spiritual side of things.
Okay, yeah.
So you used to be a big part of the church.
Yeah.
What does that look like now? Take me through that journey a little bit.
Okay. So Matt and I were very, very part of the church. We really loved and enjoyed being part of a large church community. We were part of evangelical church, so very vibrant, very kind of modern church, not traditional church as such. So lots of live music, lots of live bands.
Yeah.
and a lot of young people and a lot of young families. And so that's kind of what we grew up in. We grew up in that. That's, so formative, and was so formative for who we are today. And, part of that was even the way that we would date. So Matt and I dated, but we were abstinent until we got married, which is such a, you don't really hear about that so much. And so that was also really impactful. And so then fast forward, just prior to COVID, Matt had started reading some different books and kind of just listening a bit wider afield to what we'd been exposed to. And started having some questions about theology and how we view Christianity and how we view God, and what do we think are the closed hand issues and what are the open hand issues, and what things can be discussed and what things are like categorically no, and we could spend an hour talking about this, but there were lots of questions that started coming up, and we would talk about a lot of things. And then I started listening to a book and I was like, gosh, what is this, and what is Christianity, and it has such a long history, but what does it mean for today? And is it true? Is it not true in the fullest sense, but are these certain things true? And it just really, I think I just had the rug pulled out from underneath me, definitely during COVID, when there was more time to think about things, and not being spoon-fed so much, because we weren't going to church a lot, well, at all.
You had your own time to do your own research.
And it just really changed. And so without going massively into it, I think we both just feel that, and I feel that it's wider, that God's love is wider. And I think we were brought up to believe that there was a narrowness to it, which I'm sure people will disagree with me even saying that. But what we feel like maybe God can be found in more places than I was told. And that makes me feel really peaceful and really good. And I used to be very harsh on myself and very hard on myself in terms of, I'm not doing well enough, I'm not putting enough time reading my Bible, I'm not spending enough time praying, am I doing this, have I told enough people about Jesus, have I done this? And since coming out, there is such a peace. Yet I still want to have a relationship with God. I still believe in the teachings of Jesus. I still want to live as a person that loves others, that when somebody comes into contact with me, they go, oh my gosh, like you are somebody who mirrors the heart of God, if there is a God, and so
that's amazing. And I actually think, like, what you just said about, how you feel now about things, you have that feeling of peace and love and happiness, and that's what it's about. What you were just saying before then about, I'm not reading the Bible enough, I'm not doing this enough, I'm not doing that enough, that's literally self-judgment. Judgment is like the lowest vibration we can be in, along with like jealousy and all that stuff.
It does not draw the best of you out. It really doesn't.
And I think whatever that looks like to you, whatever your beliefs are, whatever my beliefs are, like whatever anyone's beliefs are, as long as what you're doing is coming from a place of kindness, love, and you feel good about it, how could that be a wrong thing?
Well, I would say that is the Spirit of Christ. The Spirit of Christ is anything that is love, that is unity, that draws people closer, that is a drawing in and not a rejecting of, that isn't judgmental, that results in life. That for me is the Spirit of Christ, and that can be packaged in my opinion, my humble opinion, in lots of different ways.
I couldn't agree with you more. I honestly totally agree with you. And I'm a Christian. My dad's family are all Christian, and my dad's actually Lebanese. So Lebanon is like pretty much 50-50 Muslim Christian. And I'm a Christian, but I fully believe in God. But me personally, you probably heard me speak on my stories and whatever. I refer to God as the universe, but I still believe it's God. It's just a bigger power, and I still believe that that's God. But for me, I feel good saying the universe. That's just how I resonate. And the universal laws and all that stuff. But it's all exactly the same thing. It's just how you feel comfortable speaking about it and what feels good to you. in my opinion anyway.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I think the less dogma there is and the more space there is to have conversations that are really open and like, gosh, what are you thinking? How do you experience that? Rather than trying to shove it down this narrow...
Yeah, you're wrong because...
Yeah, you're wrong because and I can prove it. Can you?
I totally agree. Yeah.
Are you God?
Can you? Are you Jesus?
Right?
You are, great.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's... Yeah. And I still have... there's so many things that I still don't know. And I 100% hold my hands up to that. I'm so at the beginning of my journey of actually being like, well, what is that? And what does that mean?
But when will we ever know?
At the end.
At the end. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
at the
And then
end.
we'll come back and tell everyone.
And the hope is that God's love is enough to cover that.
Yeah.
Because we're just human, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah.
Okay, so your spiritual journey has been quite a journey.
Yeah, and I'm at the better part of it now. For after COVID and for a couple of years, I did feel out at sea.
Yeah.
It was existential crisis.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Depth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
What
Fearing
did
the
that,
afterlife.
was it
and all
just
that.
fear?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, not realising just how much fear I'd held on to. And everyone's, oh no, you know, where there is love, there is no fear. Okay. So why is there fear? And why when I do this, or why when I watch that, or why when I say that, are you afraid? Why do you react in an afraid, scared way if love casts out fear?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then for me, it took years to really shed that fear of, if I choose to question the personhood of Jesus, if I choose to question the theology of the gospel or the theology of the cross, or, you know, even suggest that Muslims and Christians and Jews and Hindus will all get to heaven or get to experience the love of God.
Yeah.
Does that put me in a place of risk of losing my eternal life?
Yeah.
It took so long to get that fear off because it had been deeply entrenched the only way. And I don't want to cause offence to anybody listening to this. Like, I know that it is a really tender issue, especially for Christians, you know, that they would say, no, it's only Jesus. I'm like, okay, I get that. And I get what it says in the Bible. I understand that. I 100% I get it. But then what about these other beautiful, devout people who really do love God?
Yeah.
Who really do live lives with, in my opinion, the Spirit of Christ that flows through.
Yeah.
That is touching the world, that is changing lives, that is bringing about the kingdom of God, however you want to, but they maybe don't have the t-shirt that you have on. Maybe they don't use the same words. Maybe they don't identify as a Christian, but they still are bringing this wave of love. Yeah. Sometimes better than the church. What about them? Are you saying that God's just going to be like, no, sorry?
Yeah.
I can't buy that.
No,
In my humility, I cannot buy that.
No, I agree.
I think God is more.
Yeah.
I think God is more.
I totally agree. And I actually think that goes back to not just spiritual thoughts and beliefs, but I think in all areas of life, everyone is entitled to their own opinions. Yeah. And, you know, for me, if I'm having a conversation with somebody, even if I don't agree, I will say, we can agree to disagree. Yeah. You're entitled to your opinion. I don't agree with it.
And also people's experiences.
Exactly.
I could tell you, Natalie, I've spoken to Jesus. Yeah. He's spoken back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, somebody might be like, you are an absolute batshit crazy. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
I would literally put my hand up in the court of law and say, I know that has happened to me. Yeah. Because we all have our experiences. Exactly. And so who are we to question somebody else's genuine life experience?
And judge them for
it.
Yeah. Fully on the same page as you. Yeah. 100%. Okay, so what does that look like now then? Obviously, you've got three kids. What does that look like in terms of, because I want to talk about your kids' upbringing and go on to all of that stuff. Yeah. Where are you at then now in terms of how you bring your children up, your beliefs, just in general, not just, you know, spirituality, just in general?
I think if I was to give one sentence, it would be that my biggest dream is that I raise my children in the way of love. Yeah. In the way of love, that I am working on raising my children as a mother who unconditionally knows them and loves them, where they are in an environment where they know they are 100% free to be themselves. Yeah. 100% free to agree, disagree, believe what they want to believe, go on their own journey,
Yeah.
and know complete safety within that.
Yeah.
I do want to teach them that they have come from a divine source and therefore they hold incredible value because of that.
Yeah.
And that there is spiritual awakening out there for them,
Yeah.
if they want it. Because I think as humans we thrive not only with the natural but also with the spiritual.
Yeah.
However we find that.
Yeah.
And I think God has given me, having connection with the divine has given me massive healing, massive sense of purpose, massive sense of rootedness within the cosmos of our universe. It has given me a place.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm floating. I genuinely feel like I was born in this time, for this time, with some kind of purpose. And that God will want to, and he wants to speak to me about it.
Yeah.
So why would I not want to pass that on to my kids?
Yeah.
I also really think it's super valuable that in our culture now, where there is so much questions over identity and questions over who are we and wokeism and all of that, I want my children to love, and to love people, and to take a moment to look at the life of somebody and be like, I'm not going to judge you, I'm going to get to know you. And then it's okay if I have an opinion. Yeah. Yes, that's absolutely okay. I'm not about cancel culture. I find that quite a tough thing, because it's removing our freedom of speech. Yeah. But I want my kids, even within that, to be strong with what they feel and believe, what they feel comfortable with and what they don't, but to always come at it with love. So that's my heart. And to raise children who are free and strong, who stand up for justice, stand up for the poor, will give to the poor, will love the poor and love the rich who are poor in spirit, maybe. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, that you see the need wherever it is and then meet the need. Yeah.
I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah. And that's from my upbringing. And that's why it's like, yes, we've left the church, but there's a sense of the church hasn't left me. Yeah. I can take what I've learned and what's been embedded in the very core of who I am.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And there's definitely, you touched on it a second ago, there's definitely a big, because I'm quite a spiritual person myself, there's definitely a big universal awakening that's been happening, in my opinion, since lockdown. Yeah. And I think the more people who are becoming open to speak about it, and I fully believe that there are chosen people. Yeah. I believe that both of us are those people.
Yeah, who have a voice.
Yeah, who have a voice, who want to share things, and exactly what you just said, how you want to raise your children from that place of love and no judgment and just acceptance and helping people and all those things. Yeah. There are certain people who have been chosen. This podcast is going down a route I was not expecting. Yeah. I'm here for it.
It's cool.
But there's definitely chosen people who have become awakened. And some people will be listening to this thinking, like you said, we're both batshit crazy.
Yeah, it's okay.
But some people will be listening to this going, I'm one of you. Yeah. I'm the same. Yeah. And I think that's incredible.
Yeah. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Good. Me too. So, okay, can we talk about homeschooling?
Yeah.
Because this is a topic which, for me, I'm just really intrigued by. Yeah. I think it's something which is becoming more and more popular. It's still not popular, but it's becoming more and more popular.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, when I look at my circle of people, there's probably a handful of people that I know that homeschool their children.
Yeah. Which is incredible.
Because
5 years ago, 10 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case.
No, 100%. But that's still a small, very small number. And you think how many people go to school, how many kids go to school. Yeah. So what led you down that route initially with your first child that you did the homeschooling with?
So when our kids were first born, I mean, tiny, we already had friends who homeschooled, and it was always part of my thought, oh gosh, I'd love to. But I was just totally scared. And I thought, I can't do it. I'm too highly strung. I'm too fiery. There is no way I'm going to destroy them if I homeschool them. So no, I won't. So then kind of shelved it. And then by the time my son Malachi got to the age, he got into year 4, such regret. He had already been bullied for those 4 years.
Okay.
And he'd always told us, and we'd always sent him back in and tried to encourage him and strengthen him and coach him and talk to the teachers, and they were always like, oh no, it seems fine, da 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 da. And we didn't realise how bad it was. The school didn't really tell us. Maybe they didn't see, I don't know. But it had got to a point where Malachi had come back from a PGL trip and he broke down in a fetal position in the corner of the room, and he was like, I don't want to be alive anymore, Mummy.
Really?
He was year 4, so what's that, 8, 9 years old?
8.
And
wow.
Oh God, I remember just holding him, and because I thought PJ would be amazing as an outdoor boy, he was going to be able to show his best self. The kids would be like, oh wow, look, Mally can do this, da da da. And it was just awful. It was just absolutely awful. And he'd had some really, it was terrible. And so then I said, mate, what can we do? And he just held me, and he was like, please, will you homeschool me?
So he just asked
please.
for it.
Yeah, he was like, please. And so that really, so that was on the Friday. By the Sunday night, Matt and I had decided that we weren't going to take him back to school. On the Monday, I went into the office and said, he's not coming back. And that was it. And then loads came out about how every lunchtime would go up to the field and hide in a bush just to not have to be around anybody.
God. How did that come out from him?
He had therapy, and then he would start to talk about things. And I remember him standing at the kitchen sink and being like, Mummy, and because we were singing or something, and I was like, oh, buddy, do you want to sing? And he was like, Mummy, I can't sing because the boys at school have taken my voice away.
Oh my
God. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine how I felt?
How did you cope with that? How did you deal with that?
Well, we pulled him out. That's how we dealt with it.
No, but like you,
and then,
how did
you have regret and you have pain but he was so traumatized, and he's got ADHD as well. So the trauma and the ADHD and pulling him out of school, and me thinking, right, well, I'm only ever used to being part of the system, so we're gonna do it quite systematically and try and create a routine for him because I think that's the best thing. And all of that compacted in was terrible, and it was a total shit show. And it was really, really hard to homeschool him initially. Yeah. It was really, really, really tough, and he had loads of trauma, and I was still working on my stuff. So I was then triggered by his trauma. I had a lot of anger that I was dealing with at the time, and still processing stuff from growing up. And so all of this was going on at the same time. And then within about a month, Hero who was like popular girl at school, everybody loved her, came across incredibly confident, incredibly happy, was like, Mummy, please homeschool me. I hate school.
Okay.
I hate the pressure. And she was only in year 2. But she would be crying in the mornings going to school because her hair wasn't right. She didn't have the right thing on. This wasn't feeling. Already the pressure of showing up, looking a certain way, being a certain way.
In year 2?
She hated it.
Wow.
And so, much to Mally's disappointment, we took his sister out.
Really? Was he like, oh, God's
He was like, I was going to have time with Mummy.
Yeah.
And now she's like, hijacked it.
Aww.
But so then really learning, and Huck was just about to start school, and he'd had this big build up about going into school. And so we thought, do you know what, Huck, you still go. Why don't you still go? It'll be fun. And he lasted like half a term.
Really?
And then every day was like, I don't want to leave everybody. Everyone's staying at home and I'm having to go to school. And he was he was holding his shit together really well at school, and then he would come out and we wouldn't even get to the traffic light. You know the one I mean? And he would already be like, what? All the emotions out. And so I just thought, do you know what? Rather than having one foot in school, one foot at home, which is tough anyway, doing all the school runs, blah, blah, blah. Let's just...
do it all together.
We'll just do it.
Yeah.
And the first year is always the hardest, and it was the hardest, where you're figuring out what the heck you're doing, what you think about homeschooling, how you want to homeschool, what you believe in, what you think is important, what you think is not important, how you want to do it. Them getting used to you being the one who's being like, right, sit down and do this.
Yeah. What was that like then initially for you?
God, I mean, for the first year, it was so hard.
Was it?
I was like,
imagine.
Everybody up, everybody around the table for 9, break at 10:15, and then we're done by lunchtime. And you'd kind of, you know, I tried doing projects, Native American projects on this, you know, Victorian era, blah, 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 doing art projects, space. We did loads of like fun stuff. But really it got to the point where they were like, I don't care. I just want to get it done and go and play.
Yeah.
And so I just bought a bunch of books on Amazon.
Yeah.
And then I was like, right, maths, English, science, do 3 pages of that, 2 pages of that, 4 pages of that. When you're done, you can go.
Yeah.
And that's just how it worked. And so that's how we then have done it. We've just been, it's actually been very, very basic.
Yeah.
But that's how they wanted it. They didn't want me to sit down and be like, right, today we're doing something really fun. They were like, we don't give a shit. Can you just give us a book?
So what, because this is a question that I've got, and I'm sure other people probably have this question. So what, is there like a norm of what homeschooling looks like? Is it literally whatever however you see fit?
So genuinely there, you are able to, you can choose how you educate your children.
Okay.
And so there's so many different methods, especially if you look on American websites and look on YouTube and look at American families who home educate. There's a whole world of stuff. So there's a lot of creative parents, so parents who will put a lot of time and preparation into preparing projects for their children, which then includes all the subjects, and they'll do it around a theme. And some kids love that.
Yeah.
Some parents will literally spend a couple of hours a day reading to their children, and that is it.
Okay.
They'll just have a bunch of books,
Yeah.
and every day after breakfast they all sit on the sofa and the mum will read,
And that's it.
or the kids will read, and that is how they learn. And then whatever sparks from that, then the kids will have the right to go and choose how they learn and what they learn.
Yeah.
A common trait will be that a lot of home ed families will not have screen time until, they'll either not have any screen time at all.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of home ed families that I know who actually don't have TVs at home. Or really reduced screen time for kids. Yeah. So that it means that it's an environment that enables children to really be connected with learning. Yeah. And that doesn't have to be learning from a book.
No. So just whatever feels right for you as a parent.
It really, really is. And even I know people who won't do GCSEs with their kids. We've chosen to, and our kids have chosen to. I actually did give them the option. I said, do you want to? Do we want to climb that mountain?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do.
Amazing.
So Hero wants to be a vet. Mally's not sure what he wants to do, but he is like, I still want to hedge my bets and make sure that I've got my GCSEs. Yeah. And so that's the journey that we're on at the moment. And I think probably the best thing I hope that I've given them is being independent learners, that they are capable of learning on their own. Yeah. And I'm always there to support, I'm always there to help. Yeah. Are
you giving like guidance? Are you giving...
No, there's nothing from the government.
Nothing at all?
No.
That's a bit crazy, isn't it?
I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because there's control.
Yeah.
As soon as the government has an opinion.
True.
That's control.
100%. No, you're absolutely right.
So places like Australia, you have to submit your plan.
Really?
Then once the plan has been executed, you have to show where your children are at. You've got to write reports, all this kind of stuff. Okay. So we are actually really fortunate in Bedford. There is a home ed co-op called the Place Programme that is actually partially funded by Bedford Council. And so my kids get to do their exams through Place, which are paid for, which is incredible. Yeah. And they go to classes and lessons, and there's subsidised trips, and there's loads of families that are part of it. There's a massive social community there. So my kids are going to lessons every week. Yeah. You know, with other homeschool kids, but in the classroom being taught by a teacher. But it's a massively reduced, the hours are really reduced. So they will have maybe 1 hour a week compared to a kid at school who has 4 in a certain subject.
Okay, cool. So you have got that option to do that as well.
If you're in Bedford Borough,
If you're in Bedford. Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
So that's fun.
That's so cool. Yeah. I didn't know any of that. I had this image of like, okay, I'm going to homeschool, and then you get given like a curriculum that you have to follow, but it's none of that. Wow. I guess for some people, like yourself, that's a blessing. But for some people, that's probably quite scary.
It is initially, but there is you can buy curriculums. Yeah. You can literally buy a curriculum pack. Yeah. If you want to, you can. And Amazon do workbooks and textbooks that you can, which is what my kids do. Okay. My kids are doing higher Key Stage 3 science or higher Key Stage 2 science. Yeah. So they've had to, I've bought them both a textbook and both a workbook. Yeah. And I'm like, there you go.
They've got it all.
You've got 3 years to get through the whole lot, and then you'll be ready for your GCSEs. And that's how we've done it.
Yeah. That's brilliant though. Yeah. And that works for you, and Amazing.
And it works for them because they don't really want a lot of my intervention. They don't want me to be sat there going, so
have you done that yet?
Like, you're right, Mum.
Yeah, leave us alone. Amazing. But I just want to, you mentioned at the beginning when you were talking about your youngest and you said that there was that regret and pain. Like, you know now though that that's not anything you could have changed at the time. Good.
No, we do what we can do in the time.
Exactly.
And we do what we do with the information that we have, and all we had was what we had, and he's healed from it. And I think, and I hope there's more empathy in him because of that. And we never would have homeschooled. I never would have taken the leap.
Yeah.
And so our whole family culture and their childhoods would have been completely different.
It's been shaped from that.
If Mally hadn't been bullied.
Yeah.
So you think, well, was it a blessing?
Yeah.
Yes. Do I threaten my kids with school sometimes? Yes. Do they beg me to never ever send them to school? Yeah, because they love it.
Yeah.
They don't want to go to school. They don't want to be in the mainstream system. They're very, very happy doing what they do, learning how they learn with their friends and doing what they, and they both have very rich social lives and are busy,
Yeah, but it's like what we said earlier, and this is actually a running theme in all my episodes when I'm speaking to people, and my own personal stories as well. Sometimes the hardest, shittiest, most traumatic experiences are literally what make your life. Yeah. And at the time you're like, why is this happening? Yeah. And for your son, you don't ever want to see him go through that. No. But a blessing has come from it.
It would not have, it wouldn't have, our life wouldn't be what it is unless that happened.
But that takes such a strong mind and personality to look at that in that way.
And I remember always telling him, I was like, don't waste your emotions on the boys that did that. They were sad.
Yeah.
If they didn't have enough love in their hearts and kindness, and maybe weren't shown enough kindness to show you kindness, then who are the ones that we should be sorry for?
100%.
Not for you, for them.
Yeah, it's so true. That's something which I think...
said, forgive them, move on, don't let them have power. Yeah. Because even now, we know adults who hold bitterness and power and give power to the people who hurt them the most. Yeah. Because they're walking around dragging this dead dog of pain.
Literally.
And you're like...
Yeah. Send them love, send them healing, hope that they get better, genuinely.
Right.
And move on.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. So at the beginning of that conversation, you mentioned that during that time when all that stuff was going on, you were dealing with your own anger and some things that were going on.
Yeah.
I know you've definitely come out the other side of that now. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that looked like when all that was going on?
So I think as a young adult, I definitely had a lot of anger and a lot of rage. There were things that had happened growing up that I won't go into, but that happened that really shaped and informed my internal world about my sense of safety, about my voice being able to be heard. And there was a lot of pain that would often manifest itself in anger. And so...
Was that throughout your whole...
I think...
life until that certain point when it changed?
Yeah, I think my parents, so being South African parents, they're a very strict culture. I don't know what it's like now. Yeah. But definitely in the 80s and 90s, it was very, very strict. So definitely got more smacks than you could count.
Yeah.
Got grounded, got very, very strict, very, very strict. And so... they were very loving as well, but there was a lot of strictness. And I think, now we have so many different tools as parents to discipline our children, to raise them and coach them. And we know that our role is more of a coach rather than a disciplinarian. Actually, punishment is a very tiny part of what parenting should be, and coaching should be the majority. But my parents didn't know that, as did the majority of parents in that time.
It's a different way, wasn't it?
Such different way. There was like one tool in the bag, and that was a hammer, right? To do every job. And so, you know, I remember, you know, getting grounded for a really long time for faking to have an asthma attack, you know, but was grounded for like 6 weeks from TV and from going out. And it absolutely broke me.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, me and my parents have talked about it, and there's been lots of forgiveness and all of that kind of stuff. But at the time, in our early 20s, that is the time when you're processing your childhood. I'm sure it is for most people, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so there was just so much anger about that. I think anger about leaving South Africa, anger about different things that had happened within our family, different really painful things that had happened to my sister that I'd had to see. There was so much pain. And it was only really in my 20s and early 30s that I processed that. And I remember saying to God, I do not want to have children until I've got rid of this rage, you know, because I don't want that for my kids. I don't want to be an angry mum. Because that will give them an opinion of what the world is like, or what having a mother is like. And I just...
You want to be your best self.
Yeah. So I had a lot of therapy, went to something called healing prayer through the church, which was absolutely phenomenal and really enabled me to heal from those kind of traumas and holding on to certain things and allowing those things to really like leave.
What kind of things did you do, if you don't mind me asking, to do that, to go through that?
One of the most powerful experiences I had was I'd only just started homeschooling Mally. It was literally within the first week, but I'd already booked this session months in advance. And this lady was coming over, and I was like, Mally, you just hang out upstairs. Mummy's going to have this session. And essentially it's called Sozo, and the person that you're with leads you through this. It's almost like a visualization. Well, it is a visualization, but it's just within a Christian context. And so you visualize yourself in the situation that caused you the most pain. And so then you're going into your mind, you are sitting, imagining yourself as a child or whenever these things happened. And then you would ask yourself the question, okay, where is Jesus in that moment? Where was he? Right? So then you're asking these questions, and then all these emotions are coming. And gosh, in this one session, had some phenomenal stuff that really healed a relationship with my mum and my dad, where I was like, I feel this about my mum, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know why I feel this, blah, blah. So kind of unpack it, and then see this like black root, if I can share it, like where I could see there was this black, it was like metallic black, weird root that was deep inside, and I started to pull.
Wow.
And I just kept my eyes shut, and I was like, I'm going to stick with this visualization until I feel like it is done. I'm going to enter in like it is as real as I'm sitting with you. And I just pulled and pulled, and I must have been pulling for about 2 or 3 minutes.
Wow.
This long root. And then all of a sudden, like, the end of it came. And it was to do with pain towards my mum and, you know, different things. And then once that was out, I was like, God, I'm left with this hole.
God.
So then what do I do with the hole? And then I just and then I was like, oh my gosh. And then the lady says to me, okay, well, where's Jesus? What's he saying? And then I see a picture of this old man in the woods, and I know that it's God. I know that it's God, but he's an old medicine man. He's almost like the man of the woods, like the green man, that kind of idea. But like ancient, like you see him and you are like, you have been here forever and ever and ever, and you are older than the mountains, and you are older than the planet, and you are old, but you are here. And you say to me, I am gathering things from the forest, and he's making this poultice.
Wow.
In this visualization.
Wow.
And he takes this poultice out of this pestle and mortar, and he places it inside me. God. And I shit you not, I feel healed.
Instantly? Was it an instant feeling?
Like the wound, he just packed that wound with whatever he packed it with. And for me, it's his love and his kindness and his healing and it's all of that that was like, you take that shit out and I will replace it with something good.
Yeah.
And then had this other visualization where I can see this like wooden stake stuck in my heart, and I'm like, what do I do? And Jesus is like, I'll take it out. And I'm like, I don't want you to take it out, because if you pull it out, my heart's going to be like smashed.
Oh my God.
Because it's like all this shardy, like wooden, I mean, it's gnarly, it's horrible.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I will put your heart back. Because I was like, I don't want a new heart. Because I'm so aware in this moment. I was like, I love who I am. All of the brokenness that has happened, I love it.
Yeah.
There is something valuable about all that I've experienced, and please don't take that. And he's like, I won't.
Yeah.
I will give you your heart, but I will give you back to you mended.
Yeah.
And he does. He takes this wooden stake out and he puts my heart back in. And it's like, and all these pains that I had felt, these resentments that I'd felt, sometimes when my mum would knock on the door to come over to our house, I would have this like feeling.
Yeah.
It was gone.
That's insane. The detail of those things that you just said as well.
And I have them now tattooed on my arm.
Really?
I have the green man. No, it's not green. I have the man with the poultice, with the pestle and mortar. I have it all on my arm.
Wow.
Because it was profound. It was profound, and that healed me. And I don't think I had rage after that.
Isn't that so powerful?
Yeah. I remember picking Mally up and throwing him onto his bed. I remember picking up a single-seater sofa. Like I would have easily picked this up.
Yeah.
And I remember chucking it out into the garden.
Really?
So much rage. Matt being like, shit.
Just pure anger.
So much pain. And it was like, it just...
Was it a consistent thing?
No, it was
that way?
It was if I was triggered, if I wasn't listened to, if I felt misunderstood.
Yeah.
If I felt at my end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then it would just...
Wow.
But it's gone. I have not exploded. I don't remember the last time, but sadly Mally remembers.
Yeah.
He remembers that side of me.
Yeah. But do you not think that's such... I don't ever like to use the word coincidence, because I don't believe in coincidences. I think everything is aligned at the right timing. Isn't that a coincidence that happened that first week?
Well,
of him being
100%.
100%. But you had pre-booked it.
Yeah, I know. And we didn't even know we were going to homeschool. Yeah.
That was written in your story.
Yeah. And I would just say that's the kindness of God. You know, like
100%.
It's just the kindness that when our hearts want to be people who are good.
Yeah.
And we acknowledge our brokenness and we acknowledge our crazy, crazy shit.
Yeah.
Often that's the first step. Can you just acknowledge that you are broken, acknowledge that you are damaging people?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then do something. And it has taken years.
It does though, doesn't it?
It takes years.
You know, self-awareness, like exactly what you just said, is the biggest first step.
Yeah.
And unless you know where you are today, and unless you know what you want to change and where you want to go and what you want that end result to be, but you have to have that awareness in the first place.
Yeah.
And so many people are so close to that.
Yeah. Because people are afraid of the pain.
100%.
Honestly, the thing I would say the most for years and years and years was, you have got to go in to come out.
And it's fucking painful.
Right? It's agony.
It's horrendous.
It's so scary.
Yeah.
It's scary to go into the pain because you don't even think you can survive it.
Yeah.
You don't think you can survive the depth of the pain.
Yeah.
But you can.
You definitely can.
Because I think the fear is worse than the actual pain.
I agree.
The fear of what it will do if you allow that to come out. Sometimes we feel like, if I let those tears come, if I let that pain come, if I tell somebody that insecurity or that story that I have about myself, or I tell somebody that, it's going to destroy me, I will never come back from it, or my relationship will never come back from it. That's the biggest lie on the planet. Yeah. That stops people from moving forward. Yeah. Even and stops people from being loved.
Yeah. And a massive part of that is loving yourself. Mm-hmm. When you're living in that state, you're not loving yourself. No. And if you're not loving yourself, you can't love other people. No. It's the biggest part of it. And, you know, I used to be one of those people who, you know, when you get that teary feeling for whatever reason, whether you've had an argument, whether you just thought about something, whatever, we all go through those times. I used to be that person who would like, oh, I don't want to cry. I don't want to cry because I didn't want to experience that feeling of crying. And then I did all the work on myself. And now if I have a random feeling where I want to cry, I'm just like, oh yeah.
You let it
I'm
come.
like, yes, let it out.
Yeah.
And it usually only lasts like 20, 30 seconds. Yeah. But that feeling, like our tears, our tears are our trapped negative emotions. Yeah. Why you want to keep that inside of you?
Yeah.
But so many people are afraid to cry and afraid to feel when that's the first step of coming out the other side.
And I think it's one of the most beautiful things that we can do in the presence of others.
Yeah.
Because it shows empathy.
100%.
It shows it shows connection.
Vulnerability.
It gives permission.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, my kids laugh at me all the time. They'll look over at me like, are you crying?
Yeah.
At some advert or, you know,
yeah,
whatever it is. It can be MasterChef. It can be a movie. It can be whatever. And and I will cry because I allow it.
Yeah.
I allow myself to cry. I love it. You know, if I stop for somebody on the street and I'm talking to them and then I feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I'll cry.
Yeah. That's also a massive part of being empathic and being spiritual.
Yeah.
Like definitely as the years have gone on, and you'll probably feel the same, the more spiritual I've become, the more empathic I've become, the more I cry at everything.
Yeah.
I laugh about it sometimes because I'll be like walking along looking at the ducks and I'm like, oh my God.
But isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
I just think it's so, I find it's one of the most attractive.
Yeah, I agree.
Characteristics of a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and you know what if it comes from a place of like genuineness or where it's coming from. But when it comes from empathy, it's just beautiful.
And I think it's also having that feeling like you've got that connection and knowing you've got that connection brings that out of you.
Yeah.
And you know, so many people think vulnerability is a weakness, and it's the total opposite.
No,
total
because it gives
opposite.
Others the permission to be truthful and honest, isn't it?
And that's love, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so going back to what you were saying initially, you had a lot of rage, a lot of anger. You went through that healing process.
Yeah.
So powerful. And that was when? That was how many years ago?
5 years ago.
5 years ago. Yeah. And today you don't experience any of that at all.
I mean, I get as, you know,
you're only human.
Anger is the next.
Yeah.
But no, it used to be a thing where I would not feel in control and I would be afraid for those around me.
Okay.
And I'd be afraid for myself.
Yeah.
Thank God nothing ever happened that was so, you know, it could have gone so much worse.
Yeah.
And so I'm just very, very grateful that nothing ever terrible happened and I never lost my shit so badly that somebody got hurt. I'm really grateful for that. I think I definitely scared my kids.
Really?
A few times. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just not part of my life.
Yeah.
It just isn't. Which I can't say how grateful I am.
Yeah.
You know, I can't say how grateful I am. But I am very convinced that people who do have anger, who do lose control, it's because the pain. And that is what actually they need to let go of. Anger is a secondary emotion. I always tell my kids this. Anger is not your emotion.
Yeah.
Something else is the emotion and it's manifesting itself as anger.
Yeah.
It's probably either because you're scared or you're feeling misunderstood or, you know, a number of other emotions, but it's not because you're angry.
Yeah, it's the pain. I think it's
pain.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I actually relate a lot of that when I have personal training clients or even some of my mindset clients, and that relates to overeating as well. You know, it's never the eating.
No.
It's the lack of self-worth, the feeling of pain, the fear of something. Like
you're
it's
trying
always
to cover something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're so right. It's a secondary action.
Yeah.
Emotion.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you've been with your husband for 20 years?
Yeah.
What has that looked like then in terms of that journey from your anger pre-healing and now, and just that journey in general, because as someone's partner, as well as for yourself on your side of the relationship, you know, that's a lot when you're going through that in a relationship.
I mean, I would say that amazingly, anger has not been one of the main characters in our relationship at all, which has been a real blessing, actually. But I think what has been one of the main characteristics, definitely at the beginning. So Matt and I met after church one Sunday night in a pub, lots of mutual friends. He liked me. I was like, not sure. I was off the market at that time. Had enough boyfriends, and I was like, I'm just taking myself off the market. I'm not looking. And then he came into my life, and then I had this massive experience where I felt God was like, by the way, he's the one. And I was like, what?
Really?
And
can you just talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, just mad. I genuinely had taken myself off the market. My sister had, by that point, she'd been married 3 times and divorced 3 times.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, wow, people can make mistakes.
Yeah.
I don't want to make a mistake.
Yeah, not me.
So, and I'd been very fortunate to always find it quite easy to have boyfriends, and it was lovely, but never really found the right guy. I mean, I was only young.
Yeah.
What was I thinking? Of course I hadn't found the right guy by then. But had just made a decision that I was going to wait. And had said to God, my Christianity and my faith back then was so deep. It was like in everything. I was like, I won't do this unless I know what God's saying. I won't do that.
Yeah.
And I just remember saying to God, just let me know. When I meet the right guy, you just tell me. Other than that, I'm just going to crack on. I was in a band. I was touring around the UK. I was busy. Yeah. Life was fun. Yeah. Right?
We haven't even touched on
that. Right. And so... met him after church one Sunday night at the pub, and just was chatting, and I was like, it just felt nice. It was easy and had lots in common. And he went, I went to the toilet with my friend, and then when I came out, I was very aware that people had been talking.
Okay. You just know, don't you?
Just know.
Yeah.
And he obviously had taken a liking to me, and then he was like, well, I'm having this New Year's Eve party. Do you want to come? I was like, I totally embarrassed myself.
Did you?
Because I'm quite cool. I was like, I was like, I'm not weird around guys. I was happy to flirt. I would be the one who would initiate more often than not with a guy. Oh yeah. Like no issues.
Yeah.
But had this moment of like embarrassment, and then was like, oh yeah, and then fist bumped him. I honestly, I just was like, can the world just open up and swallow me? Because that is disgusting. I cringe. I'm cringing myself out, giving myself the ick.
You obviously didn't give him the ick.
What the heck? Yeah, so anyway, so all this went on, went to this party. Oh no, before going to this party, was like at home, reading my Bible, being a good Christian girl, reading this book called How I Kissed Dating Goodbye. Okay. I mean, Lord have mercy. I would burn any books like that now. I think they're terrible.
So you were really done with it, with dating?
Well, I just was like, I just had a number of boyfriends who were great, but I was like, it just, anyway. Yeah. And I mean, the book is toxic, so don't read the book, but I probably read about one chapter, and then there was a bit in it, and I don't even know if I read something or if I just felt God speaking to me, but I just felt this moment of like, Mickey, what do you want? Like, not what do you want, like basic, no. Yeah. Deeply. Yeah. In your soul, in the core. Yeah. Ultimately, what do you want at the age of like 19? Yeah. Whatever I was. Yeah. And I was journaling and I wrote that down, and then I just wrote down to be loved and to love somebody and to be loved in return. Like, sounds like, what's that song from Moulin Rouge?
Oh, yeah. What is that song?
You know the bit that I mean?
What you mean?
It'll come to us.
Yeah, that's not going to annoy me.
And as quickly as I said that, Matt came. I'd met Matt once by this point.
Right. At the pub?
At the pub.
Yeah.
And just as clear as a bell felt God say to me. And it's a whisper, it's a voice, Contact me if you want to know how I hear God. But it was just this whisper of, he's the one.
You just knew.
And I was like, I didn't even fancy him.
Really?
I was like, what?
Yeah.
Nice guy. does God say that? Does he use the word the one? I mean, that seems a bit cheesy. Like,
obviously did.
it just felt weird. And I was like, no way. And so, honestly, I was awake till the sun came up that next day.
What was going through your head then when that happened?
It just felt out of this world.
Yeah.
I was like, this is weird. Is this real? Am I having a true experience? Is this like some weird, what is going on?
Yeah.
God, are you actually speaking? So I was like reading my Bible, being like, right, you've got to confirm it. Give me some other verses that like bolster this. Like,
give me some more signs.
Right? And by the morning, I was like, this is it. And then my mum I go into my mum's room the next morning, and my mum was like, why were you upset? Like, what the heck was going on for you? And I was like, I can't tell you. I'm waiting for confirmation. It's too big. And she goes, I know exactly what happened. And I was like, what? She goes, I know that God's told you who you're going to marry. I was like, shit the bed.
No.
Yeah.
What?
God had told her in the night that he was telling me who I was going to marry. How do you make this up?
No, that's insane. But I'm fully on board.
Yeah, I'm like,
yeah, but
I've no reason to make that story up.
No. That's insane.
Mental. But then that's when the real work started.
Okay, so then what happened?
Because then it's real. Then you're faced with this real thing. And then I'm like, well, I can't just tell him because that's completely weird. You cannot just go up to a guy, even if they do believe in God, and be like, oh, by the way, you're going to be the father of my children.
Yeah, God told me last night.
Do you know what I mean? You can't, we used to have jokes about that with our friends. We're like, oh, yeah, have you heard about that guy who went to that woman and was like, oh, by the way, I had a dream that you're going to be my wife. And we were like, that's a Christian joke.
Oh, my God.
You don't do that stuff. You don't say that.
So what did you do?
So I didn't tell him.
Right.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But just allowed things to progress. Went to this New Year's Eve party. Yeah. He hardly spoke to me all night. I left weeping.
Oh.
Because emotionally, I was like, all the expectation, all the kind of like...
You thought he was going to marry you? Well,
right, I don't know what I thought, but I just thought, well, if God told me, I thought you're going to be like...
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what I thought. I was 19.
Yeah.
Who knows what you're thinking at that age?
But you thought it was going to be more than him not
I thought it was going to be more, but then it transpired that him and his mate had food poisoning and he was hosting this party and it was just this nightmare. And he had grabbed me by the end of the night and he was like, I do want to actually touch base, so can we? But I just cried all the way home because I just felt raw and open and exposed, and it just felt, oh. And I'd been on the shelf. I'd taken myself off the market and now my heart was all like open and everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so then it just kind of carried on as that. And then we'd seen each other. Oh, we'd gone out for drinks again with some mates. And then I was like, right, I'm making the effort here.
Okay.
I'm going to go to the toilet and then come right back round where he's sitting and sit near him and like chat and put my leg on his, chair and make sure that I'm giving all the body language.
Yeah. Love it.
And, not make it hard for him, and... So then it really did just progress really nice. And he really genuinely did fancy me. Yeah. And he's lovely, and he is lovely, and he's, and it just genuinely grew. And so then I came back to, I went back to Essex. I was a youth worker at the time. I lived there. He was in Bedford at uni. Okay. And we just started a long-term, like a long-distance relationship, chatted over MySpace. We were on there for hours on MySpace and... Yeah. Just chatting, getting to know each other on the phone all the time. And then he was like, I'm having a party in Bedford, do you want to come? I was like, fine, I'll get the bus, Yeah. Arrived here, went to Banker's Draft, had a drink. I sat there. I was like, I think we both know that I'm not just here for, mates. And he was like...
I love your honesty.
I mean, I was just,
Yeah. Good for you.
If he wasn't who he is, he would have been scared off. But he was, took it in his stride.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to be any other way. And I was like, I was ready.
Yeah.
And I'm like, don't be flipping making me... I've not travelled here and paid money to get here for you to just be like, let's have a nice little... I was like, no.
Oh, yeah, good for you.
We've already done the chat. We've been talking for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Next stage.
Yeah. Good. Don't waste any time. Crack on.
And then by that evening, we were going out.
Yeah.
Official.
Yeah.
And then we had a distance relationship. But then what started to come out was that actually my heart was very broken.
Okay.
And because of what had happened in the past and because of the type of family that I'd come from, like extended family, there was a lot of predatory males. It's kind of a lot of that brokenness that you don't know is there until you're faced with somebody loving you.
Yeah.
And the expectation of intimacy that comes.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you realise, shit, I'm broken.
And it's not even like physical intimacy.
No. Physical intimacy is fine.
Yeah.
And that you're actually trying to use physical intimacy to cover the lack of emotional intimacy because you're broken.
100%.
Which is actually really hard to do when you're abstinent because there's only a certain amount of snogging that you can do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so...
You have to deal with it.
You have to deal with it.
Wow.
And so for, our dating years were tough. They were really tough. And I often would give Matt the opportunity to leave.
Really?
Like, find somebody who can love you, because my heart just felt completely cold and like a rock.
And you were very aware of that. You were
so aware because he was loving me so well and so genuinely. And I think actually the saviour of it at that point was that I knew that God had said, he's the one.
Yeah.
Why would the God of the universe tell me this guy is the one if he isn't?
Yeah.
And if it isn't going to work out, and if your heart isn't going to be able to feel, because I don't think God is that mean.
Yeah.
He's not going to dangle a carrot and then not give me the carrot.
Take it away.
He's not going to say, here is this wonderful thing, but you're never going to be able to experience it fully. And so really trying to progress in the story, being in the relationship with Matt, who is so steady, who chose me, not because God ever told him, but because he chose me, because he saw the gold before I saw the gold, and he was willing to stay and love me. And I would say that Matt was God's heart and God's hands and it was basically God to me healing my heart. It was Matt's love that healed me. His consistent, patient, non-selfish.
That's so amazing.
Faithful, very, very faithful love. That has brought me to be the woman that I am today.
Wow.
Yeah.
How
I mean,
amazing.
masses of things. And then, you know, God, like just so much. And so years of that, and then eventually really falling in love with him after we were married.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't that incredible? Because I think that also has such a huge impact just on like that belief system and the importance of having a belief system,
right.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, if you hadn't have had that belief system in God and you hadn't have had that conversation that you had with God, and you hadn't, you know, but whatever that looks like to anybody, if you don't have that belief, it's not going to take you through, and you would have walked away. Yeah. Because you would have been like, well, I can't love him.
Yeah, and I would have been like, he deserves better. Yeah. And then actually I would have walked around with the wound being like, I'm not worthy of somebody loving me because I'm broken. And that would have been the story till today. Yeah.
So did that feeling of healing come through that relationship, and then
100%.
eventually you got to a point where
it's been years. Worthy? It has been years and years and years, and I still feel like completely grateful.
Yeah, you always will.
Completely grateful, and even a couple of years ago, chatting to him. So I'd always had these niggly feelings about my sexuality, but 100% couldn't talk about them being brought up in a Christian family. No.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And you know what everybody thinks about it at church. It's like, fine, you might be gay, but you definitely can't talk about it. Or you can maybe talk about it, but it has to be like the reason why now you aren't gay, or the reason why you've decided to be abstinent for the rest of your life and not embrace that. Yeah. And so there just wasn't that kind of thing. And then I'd already chosen to get married. So, you know, to a man. And so, wow. And it was never really like on the surface, but then a couple of years ago, I started having loads more dreams about it. And
really?
I was like, oh, shit. And I had a massive panic. I mean, it was, yeah. Yeah. Totally panicked.
Why? What went through your head?
Am I gay?
Just literally that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what does that mean?
Yeah.
And so on my birthday a couple of years ago, Matt and I went away
Yeah.
And because we don't get loads of time on our own together for prolonged periods of time, you don't often get time to have these kinds of conversations that then allow you to have the conversation and the processing and the responding and all of that.
Yeah.
So we had this, you know, a bit of a bomb drop.
Yeah.
But he was like, it was a shock initially, but then he was like, but will you leave? Is there a chance that you would leave me? I said, if I've never left you for another man, I will never leave you for another woman, ever. I said, do you believe that I'm faithful? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what gender.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I want to know is, can you love me?
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm not attracted to you. It's not that I'm actually a lesbian. It's that I actually just have these thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
Which they've always been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I keep them locked in, it feels like they'll do more damage than if I expose them.
Like any thought.
Like any thought feeling. And so it took a few months of, you know, dipping in and out of the conversation and him processing his own feelings. But he was like, I don't care what you are.
Yeah.
He's like, I just want you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, good. Because that's all I want. And I want you to know and believe me when I say I may have these tendencies, but you are my person.
Yeah.
I chose to be married to you and to love you for as long as I will live. The grass is not greener. There is nothing that I can explore or experience that will ever even come close to what I have with my husband. And so that is the reality. And I think that is kind of the message. It's like, there is so much freedom when there is honestly like true love.
Yeah.
And where everybody, when the people in the relationship, both parties have the opportunity to be fully themselves.
Totally.
And can be fully accepted.
And honest communication about all those things.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's mad.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I don't have any shame about it.
Yeah. But why should you?
Right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
in a different environment, you know, there was a lot of fear for me.
And for a really long period of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. That was only a couple of years ago, you said.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's still like relatively fresh.
Yeah.
Because that's a big thing.
And then what does that look like now then, today?
Well, you just
kind of accept that those are your thoughts and you just go about your life.
But I love him.
Yeah.
And I've chosen him.
Yeah.
And he's such a gift to me. And I'm attracted to him more now than I've ever been in my entire life.
Really?
To anybody, because of who he is, because of what we share. And that is what love is. It's not, you know, it's not about the physical. It's not about, and yes, that's nice.
Yeah.
Of course it is nice to have an attractive partner.
Of course.
Great. But that's such a minimal part of what makes us successful.
Totally.
It's about safety.
Yeah.
Genuine emotional safety and honesty and the space to be fully yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, hopefully that's helpful for someone to hear.
That's so powerful. And I didn't know any of that about you.
No. I mean, people wouldn't.
No. But so much from this conversation, I think that's why doing things like this and having conversations like this are so powerful. Because one person might be listening to that story or what you said about homeschooling or, you know, whatever it is that you said, that someone will take it away and go, okay, I can go and do this now. And you've changed someone's life.
Yeah. We just don't know, do we? But it's just about, somebody said to me once, Mickey, you carry permission with you. And I was like, what do you mean by that? They were like, something about the way that you speak gives people permission.
I could not agree more.
And I hope that I do that.
You definitely do. And you know what? When I started at the gym a couple of years ago, you and Jodie were the first people that spoke to me at the studio. I don't know if you remember. Yeah. And I will always remember that because you had that like warm, just welcoming feeling.
That's great.
And when you're walking into a community of people, yes, regardless, I don't think I've actually started working there yet. I think I was just like finding my feet and I was about to start working there or something. Yeah. And I remember going to one class and Jodie was really friendly. And then I came to another class and you were really friendly.
It's great.
And not everyone is like that. and to have that within you as such like a natural way of being. And I see it with you all the time at the studio. You're so inclusive, you always talk to everyone, and that is, to me, that is what success looks like, being like that.
For me, I'm just like, what are we leaving? What smell am I leaving in a room? When I leave, what atmosphere am I leaving? What am I creating when I walk into a space? You know, what do people feel when they're around me? They are the most important things.
Totally.
There's nothing more important. Success means nothing if you cannot make the people around you feel loved and seen. And it doesn't have, I used to overcommit to people all the time, being part of a church community. You'd always feel like, oh, sorry, I haven't had a coffee with you. Or, you know, there was this constant thing. And since coming out of that and having, like, growing up a bit myself as well, just being like, it's okay to be present with somebody in the moment.
Exactly.
And then to never meet them again or to not have a coffee with them and to not become best friends. You can have a genuine interaction where you genuinely connect and 100%. Make an impact without having to overcommit.
That's much more genuine and powerful.
It's fine. And you've got energy for that. We've all got energy for that.
But so many people are the total opposite of that. And you'll be sitting with someone and they'll be on their phone talking and you're like, just give me your energy whilst I'm here.
But people, it's
but
not
people
the culture.
don't.
It's not the culture.
They can't be present. Wow. I mean, there's so much more I want to talk to you about. I feel like I'm going to have to get you back on for a part 2.
Cool.
I think we're going to have to at some point. But before we do that, before we finish up, I have a question for you. I've written it down because I didn't want to forget it. So I always ask all my guests at the end a specific question. So my question for you is, given your transformative journey in various different areas, if anyone is listening to this and they are at the beginning of that transformative journey in whatever area of their life, they're right at that start where it feels scary, where it feels like, what the hell is happening? Should I do this? Should I go in that direction? What advice would you give them?
Ask yourself why it is important to do the journey. One of the biggest things that I've felt, the biggest thing that got me to the gym, which has been a big transformative journey for me, was, why do I want to do it? Why is it important? So whether or not it is, why do I want to get fit? You're going to have to do some deep soul searching for that, because somebody, oh, well, it's this. No, really ask, do you want to go into the pain to deal with why you're angry? Find the why. Why is it important for you to do that? And what is on the other side? Can you visualize the version of you? And I just think, can you afford not to? Can you afford not to show up for yourself? Can you afford to not show up in whatever situation you're in and decide to go through that transformation? Transformation comes in many different forms. Can you afford to not transform? And are you willing to pay the cost of never transforming? Because that's a painful cost if you never transform.
I love that. The way you've just worded that, can you afford to not transform?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
You've been an amazing
pleasure.
guest. I'm definitely going to get you back because I haven't even looked at half my notes because there's been so much, but you've been amazing. Thank you. And thank you to our listeners. Please make sure you have subscribed, liked, followed, shared, whatever platform it is that you are watching or listening on. And we'll be back soon for the next episode. Thank you so much. Also, I will make sure I drop your Peacock's plot stuff, which we've not even spoken about, but we're on your TikTok, so it's all good. We'll drop all your information in the comments.
Thanks,
guys.
Bye.